What God cannot do does not exist. What our God cannot do does not exist. My name is Blessing Domene, and I'm giving this testimony from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm giving this testimony on behalf of my daughter, Barinem Tubevasi Domene. Shortly after I gave birth to her, she was diagnosed with a condition known as laryngomalacia. Being a nurse and my husband being a doctor, decided to seek expert opinion. First of all, we went to the pediatrician who made the diagnosis, and she even felt like my daughter was um, having was in distress, respiratory distress, as at the time we came. So she was running around trying to suction the baby, trying to do other things for the baby. We're just confused. We're like, the child we brought into this hospital quite healthy and stable. Why are they saying all this? Not until my husband mentioned to her that this was the diagnosis that was earlier made before that day. Then she was calm, then she advised us on what to do. That same day, we waited to see another specialist. This is the ear, nose, and throat specialist. Now, when we met this specialist doctor, he was quite elderly, and of course, he had a lot of experience in the profession. So he assessed my daughter. For the first time since we gave birth to my daughter, she was sleeping and breathing normally. So it made us a fool who brought her to the hospital. It made us look like we did not know what we were doing. So the ENT doctor examined her, checked her nose, her throat, her ears, everything, and told us, he asked my husband, who's a doctor, what did you say is wrong with this child? So my husband started explaining the child has laryngomalacia, difficulty in breathing. The child does this, does that. The man was just looking at us because at that very moment, my daughter was not exhibiting any of these signs nor symptoms. So it was difficult to believe that the child had those conditions. So the doctor was infuriated. So he had to ask me, say, Madam, you are the mother of this child. What did you say is wrong with this child? I tried to continue from where my husband stopped. He said, well, as I'm looking at this child now, as I'm looking at this child right now, nothing is wrong with this child. At that point, my husband just looked like we're fools. Like, it was then I remembered that Pastor Jerry had already given a word before that day on the second Sunday in the month of October, I think around 15th October or thereabouts, before he started preaching, during the second and even the third service. I was at home, my mother, my sisters, everybody was around, and we're all connected to the service. And Pastor Jerry mentioned there is a child having respiratory distress, respiratory condition. I command it to be reversed. Immediately, everybody ran down to where I was with my baby and was like, your case has been mentioned. I said, me, I'm also in the service, I have heard it. It was then I remembered that truly God had already healed my daughter, and we only went that day to the hospital for specialists to confirm it. As the man mentioned to me that as I'm looking at this child now, nothing is wrong with this child. I said, yes, sir, nothing is wrong with my daughter. For the first time, I heard it differently, as if it was Pastor Jerry speaking through the doctor, telling me, I said, this thing is not ordinary. What is happening right now is a prophetic session. The doctor said it again, that at least as I'm looking at this child right now, nothing is wrong with the child. I said, sir, even after now, nothing is wrong with my child. I said, okay. He said, please carry this baby and go home. Myself and my husband were just confused, surprised, and at the same time amazed, because if you look at how my daughter was breathing before now and how she's breathing and how she was breathing at that moment, you would not believe like you can already imagine that on the same day another doctor was calling her case an emergency and wanted to do all manner of emergency care for her. That same day, like let's say 3 hours later, another elderly doctor is saying that nothing is wrong with this child. This cannot be medically explained. It is only a miracle. and I've come to return all glory to God. Since that day till today as I speak, that girl has been breathing normally. She's been eating normally, everything normal. Indeed, what God cannot do does not exist. What our God cannot do does not exist. Pastor Jerry, I want to say thank you. Don't stop, because you have really built my faith and the faith of many others. There are many other testimonies I cannot even start sharing here. But truly you have built our faith. Don't stop what you're doing. Don't stop. Don't stop. Thank you, Pastor Jerry. Thank you, Pastor Eno. Thank you for donating your husband to the world. It's not an easy task, but Mama, I give it to you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pastor Okoro. Thank you, all the pastors, all the NSPPD crew all over the world. I say thank you, for indeed, what God cannot do does not exist.